Hello. Hello up in the mezzanine. Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've been waiting for. Thanks for coming uptown, y'all. How many people are seeing Greatest Showman for the first time tonight? Make noise, make noise. How many people have seen Greatest Showman before? Okay. First of all, this is not technically a sing-along performance. That being said, you sing along all you like. Second of all, I'm going to ask you a favor while we watch. When I first saw this movie with my parents, my dad, as you know, loves this show. In fact, he's the one walking around wearing a red jacket. You will see him. My mom had never seen it. We had both seen it like 10 times. And this is a mild spoiler, but there was a moment when Zendaya, on a trapeze, lifts Zac Efron into the air. My mom did not know this was going to happen. She takes movies very literally. And at that moment, at the climax of this song that's happening, she screamed at the screen, "He's not trained!" Poor little Troy Bolton was not trained. So if you do me a favor, when we get to that moment in the movie, can we all scream, "He's not trained"? Thank you. I have an incredibly special guest today. You know him as a million things because he is a Renaissance man, and he's doing us an enormous favor by coming here and talking to us before his matinee at the Music Man. Please give it up for Hugh Jackman!
It's beautiful. Oh. Good morning. It probably isn't morning, but it feels like it.
Well, you have a whole show to do after this, so thank you for being here. I have so many questions and not a lot of time. First of all, when it comes to musical ideas, Pop P.T. Barnum is about as bad an elevator pitch as rapping Founding Fathers. So, how did this journey start for you, and how did you get involved with this film?
And I didn't pitch it at the White House either, which was kind of one of your first pitches. Well, Larry Mark, is this too loud? Feels loud? No? Might have just been that martini last night, I'm not sure. So Larry Mark produced the Oscars, which I hosted in 2009, and so, thank you. So, I wasn't fishing, by the way, but, so he came into my office and said, "Hey, you know, the whole world, a lot of the world knows you as Wolverine, and I think now you've done the Oscars, people know that there's another side to you, we should do something," and I got this idea, and he had this massive coffee table book about circus and Barnum. And I was like, yeah. So, what do you think? He goes, "Well, let's do a musical about Barnum." I was like, all right. Honestly, in my head, I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, sounds like a good idea. We pitched it to Fox. Fox said, yeah, great, write a script. The script came back in 6 months, and it was really good. But we all knew this was a musical, and so there was no music. It was like insert song, insert song, insert song. I think the first song was written 4 years later. So yeah, wow. For me, it seemed like a good idea. I thought it was a 10% chance this movie ever got made, at best. So anyway, it took us 8 years to finally get it made.
That brings me to, I asked for some questions from the outside world, and this question comes from Benj Pasek, who is the lyricist for Greatest Showman. And he said, I think a fun question for him and your audience might be something about when he decided to actually do the movie. He was in and then out a bunch of times. What was the moment when you fully committed? He says he remembers there being a dramatic moment when Michael Gracie, the director, flew to Australia to pitch you new material. And again, this is a weird idea for a movie, you guys. So I can't.
I don't know if I've talked about this a lot, but I
you
was
can't say
in it.
yes until the songs are there.
Right. And by the way, Justin and Benj, who you guys all know and love, dear Evan Hansen,
Brilliant songwriters.
were not in at the beginning. So the original idea was we were going to have modern music, so we'll get like a greatest hits of different writers, Pharrell, Macklemore Lewis, whoever, to write different stuff. Actually, Ryan Lewis did write that beat at the beginning of the first song. That's Ryan Lewis. So that was the original idea, and a lot of people pitched Bruno Mars, and different songs came in. We worked on some of the songs. And the real greatest showman of this movie is Michael Gracie, who is a director who directed this movie, and it was his first movie. He found Justin and Benj, and it's a long story how they came to be, but they were still in college at the time, and they pitched a song called A Million Dreams. So for a long time, for a long time we only had 3 songs. So we were pitching it to different people, and we played 3 songs. And of the 3 songs, only one was Justin and Benj. It was Million Dreams, and it was clearly, the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, that's a hit song. That's amazing. So then we had other people, and then other music came in, and then before you know it, they had 2 songs. Then they had 3 songs, and then we had 8 songs, of which they had 4, and before you knew it, they were writing them all. But I was in and out because I just didn't think we worked together on the story and the music, and it wasn't until Justin and Benj really got the whole thing and they took it over that I was like, and this was 5 years in, and Michael Gracie had spent 5 years trying to get this movie made.
I'm amazed, I didn't know it was his first movie.
It was his first movie.
That's insane for this to be someone's first movie.
So I met him on I was doing a commercial. Sorry, this is going to be too long a story, but it's a good one. So I met him on a Lipton iced tea commercial.
Sure. When I think musicals.
I had to pay the rent back in the day, so I was doing the Lipton iced tea commercial in Buenos Aires. Not Buenos Aires. We were in Rio, and and I had the script. I had no music, and about 2 days into filming, and we were singing and dancing in the commercial. I said, Michael, I've got a script for you. And he goes, yeah, whatever. I'm like, oh, fine. I mean, I don't have to send it to you if you don't want it. He goes, dude, I've been doing this for 15 years. You've been making commercials for 15 years. He said, so for 15 years, I ring my mum, and every actor does exactly what you just did. Usually it's at the rap party, they're like, you're awesome, man. We should do a movie together. And for about 10 years, I would ring my mum and say, George Clooney wants to do a movie with me. Leonardo DiCaprio wants to do a movie with me. And I believed it for 10 years, so I don't believe it anymore. So about 6 weeks later, I sent him the script, and he rang me and he goes, oh shit, you were serious, sorry. So that's how he came on. And back to your original question. There was a moment in Melbourne where I thought I was going to break up from the movie. I just didn't feel the studio were on board. I was like, and I felt really bad for him, and I talked with my agent, and I thought the best thing I can do for Michael is to say, let's stop, because this could go on and on and on, and I have a funny feeling it's never going to get made, and I don't want to do this to you. So I went into this meeting to break up, and I came out pregnant 45 minutes later. And I was so nervous because Michael's one of my best friends, and he'd worked so hard, and so I told Deb, I said, Deb, can you just leave the hotel room? So she's waiting outside in the hallway. I was almost crying, going in. It was like a breakup. And I came out, and we're hugging. Deb's like, that's the best breakup I've ever seen. I said, no, we're breaking.
So let's talk about the production of this film, because these musical numbers are just absolutely tremendous. Did you workshop this like you were workshopping a show?
Yeah.
Like how do you get that level of cohesion, that kind of casting?
We did so many workshops. We did workshops with the most incredible cast. I mean, I had Cynthia Erivo, Aaron Tveit, there was Sutton Foster, you name it. We had the best of Broadway coming in and working with us on this material. People were so generous and so incredible. Michael would film everything. We actually filmed the entire thing in like hallways and wherever we were, so he cut the entire film together before we shot one frame, which I'd never seen done before. So, and all the numbers he would choreograph and shoot, because he wasn't sure, even when we were pitching it to the studio heads, We were in a room with a piano and drums, and he was like, I don't trust that they're going to really know what it's going to be. They're not going to hear it. They're not going to see it. So we were at that final pitch. We had singers. He had a massive screen above our heads. It was the oddest thing because we were doing the entire show live in a room, but the whole audience there, which was all money people, were just looking at the screen like this because the entire thing either had artwork or the choreographed, cut together piece. So it was more than workshop. It was so well done because he just knew that the people needed, the money people needed to see it. There hadn't been an original musical in 23 years at that point. So, yeah.
It's a really smart thing to, Rob Marshall does that. I learned that from Marshall on Tick Tick Boom of like, you rehearse it like it's a show. And so, there's not a moment you haven't touched by the time cameras are rolling. So you're making the movie and you're making the movie.
And the other great thing about that is people ask me all the time, will this go live? Will there be a live show? And
is that your question?
And I'm going to take that as encouragement, but I always say I really hope so because when you're in a room, even if it's like a rehearsal room and you're pitching, if it works. And some things can work on film that don't work in a room. This works in a room. So I just know that whatever that feeling the film gives will happen on stage.
I want to ask about what was the hardest number. I get sweats when I think about you and Efron doing that other side choreography. I get, there's you and Michelle on the rooftop. Like, what was the most challenging number? Once cameras are rolling and you're actually filming.